I've been covering a lot of webcams on the channel lately, and I just picked up a new one, picked up the Logitech MX Brio, which is a 4K webcam, and I want to go ahead and compare it to one of my other favorite 4K webcams, the Link 2. So we're going to go ahead and compare these physically. We're going to compare how the cameras look. We're going to compare how they perform in different lighting scenarios. We'll also compare the microphones and look at the software real quick and kind of come to a conclusion as to which one of these are better in certain scenarios. Without further ado, let's go ahead and look how these physically compare to one another. All right, so here are the two cameras. So first we'll take a look at the MX Brio. So we have this little mount here. It is made out of plastic, but it's got a lot of articulation. So it opens up like this. This one also pivots like so to give you the best grip possible. This section here is actually grippy, like it's like a tape. So it's meant so that it doesn't slide around on the back of your monitor or your display. And we also have a frontwards pivot here so that you can go ahead and pivot it down towards your desk, which is very helpful in the show mode that this camera has. And the camera is mounted to the mount magnetically, so we can go ahead and take that off. And then we have a threaded insert here, so we can go ahead and thread that onto a mount if we'd like. Now, physically, we have the two microphones on the front here for noise cancellation purposes. We have a status light, and then we have the very satisfying shutter, which is like so. On the back here, we also have a USB-C port, and this camera comes with a USB-C to USB-C cable. Does not come with a USB-C to USB-A adapter, however. And if you're going to be using this camera and want to use it in 4K, which I assume you would, you have to make sure that you're plugging it into a USB 3.0 compatible port or adapter if you're going to be using a USB-A adapter to make sure that you take advantage of that 4K. I did struggle with that a little bit when I plugged in this camera first, and then once I figured it out, it was working well. Now we have the Link 2. So the mount here is a little bit different. It is made out of metal, but it doesn't have as much articulation as the MX Brio. It does not have that third little piece here with the elbow on it. But we do have some rubber mounts here to keep it from sliding around, which is nice. It is made out of all metal. Big difference here is the thread is on the bottom of the mount instead of on the bottom of the camera like the MX Brio. We also have that forward tilting, so if we want to go ahead and do some desk view stuff, we're able to do that pretty well, and there are some modes built into this camera directly for that too. Now, it being on a gimbal, we do get quite a bit of range of motion, so we have a 180-degree tilt, and then we have quite a good, I believe it's a 280 or 290-degree rotation there, so that's pretty great. And just like the MX Brio, this is magnetically mounted to the mount, so we can take it off and move it around if we want to. And yeah, physically, we have a USB-C port. Now, the Link 2 does come with a USB-C to USB-A adapter, and I haven't had any issues with plugging this into any other ports. It's worked really, really well with basically every port that I've plugged it into, able to do its 4K 30 frames per second. So in terms of the specs, both cameras' regular price are $199.99. Now, Insta360 is doing some great sales right now from July 3rd to July 15th. The Link 2 is currently down from $199.99, the regular price, to $149.99, which is a great price, bringing this down to $150. It does make the pricing quite a bit different. Now, if you don't need the gimbal and you just want to have a static camera, you can get something like the Link 2C, which is down to $100 right now, which is a fantastic price on that. I will have links down in the description and in the pinned comment where you can go ahead and check out those sales for yourself. Unfortunately, the MX Brio does not have any current sales. It is still the regular price of $199.99. And even when it does go on sale, it seems like the lowest price that I've been able to find it at is $180 last summer. It hasn't really moved around that much since then. In the last 6 months, it's only gone on sale once during the Christmas holidays, and it went down to about $190. Now back to the specs. Both cameras are able to support up to 4K 30 frames per second or 1080p 60 frames per second. The Link 2 has an aperture of 1.8, whereas the MX Brio has an aperture of 2.0. The Link 2 has a fixed FOV of 79.5, where the Brio advertises itself with apertures of 65 degrees, 78 degrees, and 90 degrees. The Link 2 has a privacy mode, which points it face down, which then turns off the camera. You can also have it set to turn off the microphone when you do that. whereas the MX Brio has a built-in physical shutter. The Link 2 has a 2-axis gimbal, and the MX does not. The Link 2 also supports gestures for a few features, including some gesture controls, and again, the MX does not have that. The Link 2 has phase detection, autofocus, and manual focus. The MX Brio has an advanced autofocus and manual focus. They both support HDR. They both have dual microphones, but the Link 2 uses an omnidirectional microphone with AI noise cancellation built into its software. The MX Brio just uses the dual microphones for noise reduction. All right, so this is what both of the webcams look like. I'll give you a couple seconds, try to figure out which one is which. I'll do some movement around. I'll show a little bit more of my shirt color here. I'll move my head around so you can see the sheen on my head as it goes around. And so we've got the MX Brio on the left. We have the Link 2 on the right. Right at the get-go, my shirt color is more accurate on the Link 2. My skin color is more red on the Link 2, but it's more orangey yellow on the MX Brio. I would say neither of them are overly accurate. The wall color, however, is definitely more accurate on the Link 2 because it's white. My walls are white. They're not this like grayish blue color that you can see over here on the Brio. My beard, you can definitely see a lot more of the light reflecting off my beard in the Link 2 than you can in the MX Brio. And my hand color definitely looks more accurate in the Link 2. I look a little bit orangey again on the Brio. So this is with both of them at 4K 30 frames per second in standard mode. Let's go ahead and turn on HDR for both. Now in HDR, I am unable to adjust the exposure on the Link 2, but I can adjust it on the MX Brio. So I'm gonna go ahead and just adjust it down just a little bit more than I already had previously adjusted it. In the previous test, I had adjusted the exposure settings to have an offset, a little bit negative on both cameras actually, so that they weren't overexposing or blowing out my head. So let's go ahead and just bring that down, maybe just a tad bit more on the Brio. And I think that looks really good. Now the Brio is definitely showing a lot more reflections in my beard. Overall, it looks a little bit better. It definitely seems like this might be the setting that the Brio wants to be in. By default, HDR was on when I first plugged it into the computer. And I would say now the colors on the Brio are a little bit more accurate to life. The Link 2 is definitely making me really red. My lips are a lot more red. I feel like I'm losing detail in my forehead compared to when it wasn't in HDR. And color-wise though, the wall is still better in the Link 2. My shirt color is still better in the Link 2, but it is getting closer in the Brio now. This is kind of like a maroony shirt. So actually the Brio is getting a little bit closer, a little bit more accurate. It's not looking as brown as it was before. I would say HDR modes, the Brio is definitely overall just doing a little bit of a better job here. All right, so now that we did that, let's test it in a few different lighting scenarios. Now I'm running out of light here, so it's not gonna be as bright as I would like it to be, but I do wanna test it to see how it would look with just natural light coming in through a window. And then we'll also do it with a light from above, like if you were just sitting in your living room with a light above you on. And then we'll also do my streaming light setup as well. So this is how both cameras look with the lights off, but the blinds still open and still allowing light in. The Brio is keeping things pretty similar to where it was before. It's a little bit more cool colored. Again, the wall is looking a little bit bluish gray, and then it does seem to be adjusting quite a bit. Overall, the colors are just a little bit darker. I didn't make any changes on the settings between when we had them before. And the Link 2 is personally, I think, looking a little bit better color-wise, but it's definitely a lot noisier in the wall before. And the Link 2 has struggled in the past with other comparisons when I compared it to things like the OBSBot. Did a whole video on that. If you want, you can go ahead and check it out. But that's where the Link 2 definitely struggled the most, was the lower light situations. Its noise got pretty intense, and you can see that really accurate here as well. Now, the Brio does have a low light compensation mode, so I just want to go ahead and try to test it out and see how that changes this at all. So that is now with the low light compensation on, which allows the camera to adjust the frame rate based on the light. And you can see that especially in my lips when I'm talking. you can see the frame rate possibly adjusting a little bit while I'm talking based on the light that it's being given. If I move my head, you can see that it might be a little bit more, you might see a little bit more blur in the Brio than in the Link 2, but overall, I don't think it made too much of a visual difference here. Now, in terms of the speed of the cameras adjusting to new lighting scenarios, the Link 2 definitely does a much better job. It is very quick to adjust to lighting situations, whereas the Brio stayed pretty dark for a while, and then you can see it kind of step up as it adjusted the exposure, and these are both on auto exposure modes. Overall, I think they're both doing a pretty decent job with this terrible lighting where it's just coming straight down on top of my bald head, getting a really hot spot there. And the Link 2 definitely looks a little bit crisper. You can see in my skin, you can see it a little bit clearer. But the Brio also looks really good. Overall, I think we're definitely getting more highlights again in my beard from the Link 2. And the colors are pretty accurate. Actually, I think the Brio is doing a little bit better on my shirt now. And the Brio is actually doing a pretty good job on the wall with this lighting. This light is also a lot warmer in terms of the temperature than the lights that I use for the streaming setup and when I'm going ahead and doing all of my YouTube videos. So this is the lighting scenario in my streaming setup, and again, the Link 2 is getting a lot of noise up here compared to the Brio. The Brio's got noise, but the Link 2's got a lot more noise going on. But one thing is the Brio is constantly changing its colors quite a bit. When I originally turned all the lights off and turned those on, my face was blown out. That did end up changing and becoming less blown out, which was cool. But it is just changing off and on, and the colors are just constantly adjusting. I believe it's probably trying to change the white balance. So if I go ahead and turn that off, maybe that's what was causing a lot of those color changes. But now that I've got that off, we can go ahead and see that both of these are still looking pretty good. The noise is definitely a lot more apparent in the Link 2. There's a lot more active noise. The Brio's got noise, make no doubt about it. You can see the noise here, and you can see a lot more artifacting in the noise on the Brio, where I'm moving my finger, you can kind of see. Both of them are doing a decent job considering this is a terrible lighting scenario. And I do not have the low light compensation on for the Brio, and the Link 2 does not have a low light compensation at all. So this is how we're looking in this scenario. All right, so now let's go ahead and test the autofocus on these two cameras and see how it compares. So with the MX Brio, we'll go ahead and do that first. We got my little Bowser. We're gonna go ahead and bring that up to the camera. And it does an okay job. Don't mind the little mark on my finger. I accidentally squished it on something. So it does a decent job of switching the focus. Takes a couple seconds, but it gets there. Now, if we compare that to the Link 2, which is on the right side here, go ahead and bring that up. Its focus is really snappy. That focus, it's doing a much better job. It's a lot quicker. Let's see if I can try to get it on both cameras at the same time here. Yeah, so you could see the Link 2 is doing a much better job pulling that over. But they're both doing a decent job. The nice thing about the Link 2 is we do get a lot more adjustability on the way that focus is working. Whereas with the MX Brio, it's just autofocus on or off. That's all you get. So definitely a lot more settings with the Link 2 in terms of that autofocus. So now let's go ahead and compare the microphones. So this is currently the Link 2 with all of its AI noise cancellation off. So we're in the music balance mode, which turns kind of everything off. This is how we sound. Now, the most common mode that I use on this camera when I am using its microphone is the voice focus mode. This one kind of tries to reduce a lot of the background noise and make my voice as apparent as possible without really adjusting my voice itself. It's not lifting my voice or adding any gain there. It's just trying to more so reduce a lot of the background noise. And this is what the MX Brio sounds like. There are no real settings to play around with in terms of this microphone. You can just adjust the gain in whatever software you're using. And the camera itself is trying to do noise reduction based on the two dual microphones, but you can't adjust that. You can't change any of those settings. This is just how it goes. So let's quickly compare the software for these two cameras. I'm not going to go into too much depth, but we'll just do a brief comparison. So right now we're in the Logitech Options Plus. This is where we can go ahead and control our Brio. This is a cute little screen here. It kind of looks like a monitor with our camera on top. And the settings here are just some kind of overall settings based on software and firmware. And then if we go into the camera settings here, this is where we can kind of change all the rest of that stuff. So we have the ability to enable or disable the show mode. And I really struggled to get this thing to work properly. It does it based on what it thinks it's looking at and maybe its angle, but it didn't seem to work very well. I wasn't able to get it to work properly for more than a couple of seconds, which is why I haven't showed it off. It was a little bit of a pain in the butt. The camera also has right sight, which is its auto framing. It doesn't do the greatest job. I've done quite a bit of testing on this, and it'll try to keep you in the center of the frame. So if you move over to a side, it'll try to keep you in there. It doesn't seem to be doing very much here. And it moves really, really slow. You can make it go a lot closer. So we can make it zoom into my face quite a bit more. And let's see if maybe it's a little more reactive. No. So I don't really like it. It doesn't do a very good job. And I don't think it's a main selling feature of the Brio. So it's got that going for it because it wasn't really mentioned really all too much at all anyways. Don't really like it as a feature. Doesn't do a very good job. So we'll keep that in mind. The field of views now, once getting into the software, I realized that these field of views are really just applying a pre-done crop, because if I go ahead and go to 78 degrees, which is what we did for all of the camera comparisons, I'm able to position the sensor or the image, which means that it is just cropping the sensor here. So it doesn't really seem like these field of views are legitimate. It feels like the 90 degrees is the actual camera's field of view, and everything else is just kind of adjusting a crop. So it does make me kind of question the way that they're advertising it. I don't really like the idea of it. I think 90 degrees is where they want the camera to be used. It does look really good in 90 degrees, and I do like the ultra wide kind of aspect ratio of this. I think it looks quite a bit better, but it is kind of weird that these are really just auto cropping to a specific percentage. Now the zoom on this camera is pretty great. If we go all the way up to the 400% zoom, the quality is really good actually. You can see quite a bit of details. It doesn't look pixelated or anything. Overall, I think it looks pretty good. Now we have the ability to adjust our exposure, and I've been at this -23. This is the setting that I use for most of the comparison, and it just felt like the best overall color for the webcam. And I think it looks extremely sharp, especially in this preview that we have right now. Now this is where I also toggled the low light compensation, and where you can toggle on or off the HDR. Now we also have the image settings here, where we can go ahead and adjust all of our colors, our temperature, all that fun stuff. And on the final tab here, we can adjust our focus, and really the only adjustment is having it autofocus or not autofocus. That's all you get. Now, the other nice thing about the software is that it does have presets for almost everything. So we can set a preset for our crop. We can set presets for our exposure. We can set presets for our colors, and then kind of pointless, but we can set presets for our focus as well. Now, if we go ahead and switch to the Insta360 Link controller software for the Link 2, we do have a lot more adjustability here. So first of all, we're able to adjust our resolution, our frame rate, and our ratios right here. We can turn on the AI tracking, which is going to use the gimbal to follow me around, which is going to do a lot better than just the auto framing. Auto framing would be similar on the Link 2C, but again, the auto framing on the Link 2C was really, really good compared to the way that MX Brio just performed, which was pretty atrocious. The AI tracking is fantastic. Again, if you want to see me compare that a lot more in detail, you can go ahead and watch the other videos, but we'll just do a really brief little movement here so we can go ahead and you can see you get a lot more range of movement. I can kind of move around my screen and my room quite a bit, and you can get me in the frame, and it does a really good job tracking me around. And then I can go ahead and just turn that off. Now we're set again. And if I turn on the gestures, we can also use that to activate and deactivate the AI tracking, which can be extremely handy when maybe you're in a meeting and you decide to get up from your chair, or you're presenting at a whiteboard and you decide you want to move to another section. It can be extremely handy to have. We have the whiteboard modes, the smart whiteboard mode, and the desk view. The desk view is great. I've used it quite a bit in the past. I plan on using it a lot for my Lego builds in the future. I really do like it. And yeah, does a really great job. On the side here, we have the ability to adjust our zoom. We can move the gimbal around manually if we want to. We have a whole bunch of presets for those positions, which is really, really cool. We have the ability to adjust a bunch of the tracking sessions. We have the ability to adjust a bunch of the tracking settings, which again, if you want to see me do that in more detail, check those other videos. We have the ability to do all the effects. So this is basically the image settings. We can adjust our auto exposure, and I have it down just a little bit here. We have the ability to do our autofocus, our white balance, and brightness, all that fun stuff here. And we can toggle on or off our HDR, which I don't think the Link 2 does very well with. So yeah, having color presets is really nice. So we can go ahead and maybe in different lighting scenarios, we apply a different preset. That's great. Now these sections here, these only work with the virtual camera. So it doesn't work with using the camera directly as a source. You have to use the virtual camera, and unfortunately the virtual camera's quality is reduced. Again, I did talk about that quite a bit more in the previous videos. And these are great, but a lot of software will do this for you anyways. So things like Discord, Teams, Zoom, all of them will do background replacements. I don't know if they have makeup filters, but they can do makeup filters and then regular filters. But the background filters, the Logitech is definitely relying on those other pieces of software to do that for you. They even have them on the box being like Microsoft Teams certified and all that kind of stuff. Whereas Insta360 is kind of focusing on doing that in their own software and using the virtual camera. So choose your poison. I don't use these at all. And then finally, we have the more settings, which is just turning on or off the gestures. I talk with my hands a lot. If you've watched a lot of my videos, you would know that. So I do have this off so that I don't accidentally turn on tracking or zoom or any kind of that fun stuff. The audio modes, we kind of talked about really briefly, but I keep it on the voice focus as a kind of a standard. And then in terms of our other settings, we can do our horizontal flip, we can do a vertical flip, we can do a smart adjustment, which will try to keep me in the center of the frame. And then we'd have a mute and privacy mode. So if I go ahead and turn the camera down and turn on the privacy mode, it is going to go ahead and mute the microphone so that the microphone can't be used without the camera, which I think is a really nice feature. If you don't plan on ever using the microphone without using the camera, this is a good setting to have on. And then we also have the ability to just turn on the high frame rate mode or enable a low resolution mode. So with all that said, I think that these are two really great cameras. I think that the Link 2 has a lot going for it with the gimbal, the AI features, both in the microphone and just its tracking features. It is really great in that regard. I do think that the Link 2 still struggles in lower light scenarios than the MX Brio. The Brio does a little bit better, but the Link 2 has suffered in previous comparisons as well, so do keep that one in mind. I think overall, right out of the box, the Link 2 has fantastic colors, but the MX Brio does a lot better in terms of HDR. And as a reminder, there will be links to both of these products as well as the Link 2C in the description below. And don't forget that the Link 2C and the Link 2 are on sale until July 15th. And the first 10 orders to use the promotional code LINKWEBCAM will get a free 2-in-1 invisible selfie stick and a tripod. So I'd be really curious what you guys think about these two cameras. Which one do you think has the better quality? Which one would you choose for whatever specific purpose you're going to be using them for? If you do want to see me do any more comparisons with any more 4K cameras, I would love to. If you want to let me know which cameras you'd like to see me compare in the future, let me know down in the comments. I would love to continue comparing webcams. And if you have any feedback as to ways that you'd like me to do any particular tests or things that I can do a little bit better, again, let me know down in the comments. I can always use improvements. And I really do like doing these fun kind of comparison videos between cameras. Now, with all that said, I really do hope you found this video helpful. And if not, I at least hope you found it interesting. If you did, I'd really appreciate it if you subscribed. If you have any questions, comments, or feedback, you can leave those down in the comment section below, and I'll try to get to them all as quickly as I can. Big thanks to my Patreon sponsors, and big thanks to you for watching to the end of this video. If you do want to see any other videos where I'm comparing these webcams to one another, as well as the videos that I talked about throughout this video, you can go ahead and check out the playlist right up here. And as always, stay safe out there. I'll see you next time.